Once upon a time, in the beautiful village of UCHE, there lived a hunter named Amadi. Amadi was the most successful hunter in the village. His hunting skills were second to none. He had killed deers, antelopes, bush birds, and many other kinds of animals. Sometimes, Amadi would come back home and get people to go with him into the bush to bring home his prey because of the large quantity. Other hunters in the village admired Amadi a lot because he had never returned home without a single catch in all his years of hunting. Amadi was equally the wealthiest of all the hunters in the land. He sold his prey at the UCHE local market and made a lot of money. He was loved and respected by all the villagers because he was peaceful and an easygoing man. Even the king nicknamed him Man of Peace. Despite all of this, Amadi was not really a happy man. He had been married to his wife Enemoma for 15 years without a child. His friends and family had advised him on several occasions to take a new wife, but he vehemently refused. One day, he returned from his hunting out and he saw his wife sitting outside looking sad. "Your uncle Okoro asked you to see him immediately," he said as he had his bet and left for his uncle's house. When he got there, his uncle offered him palm wine and some well-seasoned grilled fish. After he had finished eating the fish, he began to sip the palm wine. "I called you here today because of the same thing I have been telling you over the years. Amadi, please take a new wife," his uncle let out. Amadi stopped drinking the palm wine. He dropped the calabash immediately. "I am not going to take another wife, uncle. My answer has not changed. I love my wife and I am willing to wait for as long as it takes," he replied to his uncle. "If it pleases the gods to give me a child, so be it. If not, it will not change my love, Enemoma," he added. "I am not saying you shouldn't love your wife. All I am saying is that you should take a new wife who will bear you children. Since Enemoma has refused to bear you children," Okoro told him, "think about it, my son. See how wealthy you are. You need an heir. A son, someone to inherit all of your accumulated wealth." Okoro pressed on. With his head bent down, Amadi stared at the ground. He was quiet for some time before he finally spoke up. "Thank you so much for your kind advice, but I am not going to take another wife. I am willing to wait for as long as it will take. I know the gods will answer us someday." "Stop this, Amadi," his uncle cut in. "Be a man for once. Only weak men talk the way you are talking. Marry another wife and have children," his uncle insisted. "Who knows? That might pave the way for Enemoma to have hers," he said on a final note. "If loving my wife genuinely and sticking to her is your definition of weakness, then I want to remain a weak man," Amadi replied his uncle as he got up to leave. "Thank you for your hospitality, uncle. I enjoyed the palm wine, but I must leave now," he told his uncle. "I have played my part as your uncle since the demise of my brother, your father. I will never mention this to you again," Okoro said angrily as Amadi took his leave. Amadi returned home and met his wife looking sad. "What is the matter, Nne? Why do you look so sad?" he asked, looking curious. "I know why your uncle called you. He has advised you to take another wife again, right?" she asked with teary eyes. "Yes, he did, and I said no," Amadi answered her as he moved closer to her. He hugged her. "Please take another wife," Enemoma let out to the dismay of her husband. "I am tired of waiting. Take another wife and have children. I can't fight this anymore," she added with a sigh. "I accept my fate," she said and broke down in tears as she began to cry. "I believe the gods will give us a child. Please don't lose hope, Nne," Amadi tried to console his wife. As he held her, he noticed that she suddenly stopped moving. He looked at her. Her eyes were closed. He called her name severally, but she didn't respond. He shook her, but there was no response still. He called out his domestic workers and they all came out. They began to pour her water. Amadi was confused. He sat down on the ground and began to hit her palm gently. After some minutes, Enemoma sneezed. Amadi sighed a heavy sigh of relief. He sat up and looked around. "What happened?" she asked. "You fainted. You scared me. What happened? Are you okay?" Amadi asked several questions without waiting for an answer. "I am taking you to the medicine man immediately. I must be sure you are fine," he added. With the aid of his domestic worker, Enemoma was taken to the medicine man. "You are pregnant," the medicine man exclaimed after examining her. "What did you say?" Amadi asked, shock evident on his face. "You heard me, Amadi. Your wife is with a child. She hasn't eaten since morning. That was why she fainted," he replied him. Turning to Enemoma, who was lying on the mat, he said, "Congratulations. It has pleased the gods to bless your womb. After you leave here, get the village midwife to monitor your progress." Enemoma couldn't believe her ears. She was pregnant at last. After 15 whole years, tears flowed down her cheek. "May the gods be praised," she said silently. Amadi began to pamper her like a child. He didn't allow her to do anything in the house. He made sure his domestic workers did everything. Enemoma had a smooth pregnancy journey. She was very strong and active throughout. After 9 months, it was time for Enemoma to have her child. She was taken to the midwife immediately and she went into labor. She was delivered of a baby boy. Immediately the baby boy was born, something strange happened. The weather suddenly went dark for about 5 seconds and there was a heavy sound of thunder and lightning. Immediately it began to rain. Even though there was no cloud, it rained heavily for about 2 hours before it stopped. Amadi and Enemoma were very happy about the birth of their son. When the midwife finished cleaning the child, she handed him over to his parents. The child had a very rare birthmark on his forehead and on his thighs. They took their son home and named him Ikemefuna, which means "I shall not lose my strength." 3 days after Ikemefuna was born, the king died mysteriously. The king had gone to bed hale and healthy, without any sign of sickness or distress, only for him to scream from his sleep in the middle of the night. His queens and 2 guards ran into his chambers and found him on the floor, vomiting blood. One of the guards was immediately sent to invite the medicine man. Before he could arrive at the palace, the king has passed. The guards were sent to inform the village chiefs the next day. Before noon, the news of the king's passing had spread around the village, and everyone was thrown into mourning. They all loved the king as he was a man of the people and very kind-hearted. Arrangement was made and the king was properly buried according to the tradition and customs of Achi village. The first son of the king was installed as the new king. Although he was a young man of 22 years, he had been properly groomed for the throne by his late father, Obi Ikenga. He was also asked to take a wife immediately, which he did. He married a very beautiful and noble maiden named Ifoma. Things began to go sour for Achi people in the village. Immediately they installed the new king, Obi Ezedu. The new king was the first son of the late king Ikenga. Eze Ikenga had 2 wives and 7 children. Out of the 7 children, only 2 were males. Ezedu was the first son and the son of the first wife, while Ezego was the second and son of the second wife. Ezedo was crowned the king 3 months after the demise of his father, as the culture of Achi demanded that the first son of the king must be installed as the new king 3 months after the demise of his father. Although there was a little disagreement between the elders and the chief priests as to who should be crowned the king, the chief priest insisted that the gods chose Ezego, the second son, but the elders refused, saying that from time memorial, only the first son of a late king of Achi was crowned the king. As soon as Ezedo ascended the throne, things began to fall apart. Archie used to be known as the most successful village among the neighboring villages. Archie had a lot of successful farmers, fishermen, hunters, basket weavers, ceramists, and many other people with different acts of craftsmanship. It was popular for its rich commercial activities. People came from neighboring villages to buy in Archie village. The people of Archie were generally loving and very peaceful. There was little or no crime activity recorded in Archie. People would go out and return to their houses at any time without the fear of being attacked by anyone. But after Ezedo's installation, everything turned around. Commercial activities dropped. People from the neighboring village stopped coming to Archie to buy goods. Most of the traders began to run at losses. Fishermen would go fishing for days without a single catch. Friends began to fight each other. The once peaceful and beautiful Archie became one of the most dreaded villages. People's crops were being harvested by thieves. This continued for over 2 years after Ezedo became the king. The villagers began to grumble. Meanwhile, Ikemefuna was growing into a handsome young boy. His parents loved him so much. He was the apple of their eyes. They made sure he lacked nothing. Despite being the only child, his parents ensured they instilled in him good morals. Ikemefuna at the age of 2 would happily run little errands for his mother. All the domestic workers loved him, but there was something strange about him. At the age of 2, Ikemefuna'Life spoke like a matured elder. His behavior was like that of a grown man. He didn't behave like a 2-year-old at all. Sometimes his mother gives him apple and soup to eat. He will tell her that he was asked not to eat apple and soup for 3 days. By who? His mother always wondered, but she couldn't ask him. He mostly would eat only roasted yam and oil for days. He was acting like a possessed child. One day, one of the domestic workers, Amaka, wanted to go to the stream to fetch water. Ikemefuna told her not to go, but wait for some time before going. I was asked to tell you not to go to the stream now, he told her. Enemoma heard him but didn't pay much attention. Amaka began to laugh at him. How can a little boy like you tell me what to do and what not to do? Don't worry, I will be back before you know it, she replied and gave him a gentle pat at the back. She left for the stream. Some few minutes after, a villager ran into Amadi's compound, announcing to them that his worker had been bitten by a snake on her way to the stream and had been rushed to the medicine man. Enemoma rushed to the place to see her. Luckily for her, she was taken to the medicine man on time. He gave her some herbs and extracted the venom from her. She survived. Some weeks after the incident, Amadi was to go hunting with his friend Okocha. Ikemefuna warned his father not to go. Papa, you and your friend should rest today. You can go tomorrow. I was asked to tell you not to go, he warned his father. My son, this is what I do for a living. If I don't go hunting, we will not have food to eat, Amadi replied his father. I know you will miss me. I promise to bring you back big rabbits, he added. Ikemefuna continued to insist. Enemoma met them arguing and asked what the matter was. Your 2-year-old son is asking me not to go hunting today, Amadi told his wife. Then don't go, she replied immediately. Remember the incident with Amaka that was bitten by a snake? Ike warned us, but we didn't pay much attention. Please don't go, she begged him. Amadi listened to his wife and decided not to go. When Okocha, his friend, was ready and got to Amadi's house, he told him what Ikemefuna said and begged him to wait till the next day. Okocha became angry. It didn't make sense to him that his friend would cancel his hunting trip because of what a little boy of 2 said. I will go alone. I thought you were a brave hunter, he said in anger. Amadi tried to convince him, but he insisted and left for the bush to hunt. The next day, words got to Amadi that his friend was attacked by a wild animal. Although Okocha was able to kill the animal, he was badly injured. He was found by some other hunters and had been rushed to the medicine man for treatment. Amadi ran as fast as he could to the medicine man's house. He couldn't believe his eyes when he got there. Okocha was soaked in his blood. He managed to look up at Amadi. "I should have listened to you, Amadi. Please take good care of Ikemefuna. He is a special child with unique powers," he advised. "Always listen to him," he added with his last strength, and suddenly went quiet. Amadi screamed, and the medicine man who had been preparing some herbs rushed in. He checked Okocha and shook his head. "We lost him," he told Amadi. Ikemefuna continued to act strangely. Sometimes he would sit alone and talking to an invisible being. One day, his mother searched the whole house looking for him, but she couldn't find him. She asked her domestic workers, but no one knew his whereabouts. About an hour later, Ikemefuna walked into the compound and went straight into his hut that he shared with his mother. Without talking to anyone, he locked himself up. Any moment his mother became afraid. She walked to the hut and knocked, but he refused to open up the door. Where could a 3-year-old be coming from, she wondered. He had never gone out alone. Prior to that time, he didn't open his hut till evening. When Amadi returned that evening, Enemuma narrated what happened to him. "He is still in his hut as we speak," she told him, "and hasn't eaten all day," she told him. Amadi got up immediately and went to the hut. He knocked and Ikemefuna opened up and greeted his father cheerfully as though nothing had happened. "I want to see all the animals you brought home today," he said, dragging his father along. Enemuma was shocked at the sudden change of mood. She just watched as father and son from a distance and prayed that all was well with her son. After Ikemefuna had slept that night, Amadi had a meeting with his wife. "It is obvious that there is something off about our son," Amadi began. "He is a special child and obviously has some strange powers, which I am yet to understand. Please, I want us to keep him away from the public eyes," he continued. "They might tag him an evil child, and I don't want that," he added. "Don't let him out of this compound alone. Other children can come here and play with him, but he is not allowed to go to them. Let's protect him until we figure out the mystery," he concluded. Enemuma nodded in agreement. "Yes, my dear husband, I completely agree with you," she said with a sigh. However, Ikemefuna continued to leave the compound and returned acting strangely. Nobody knew where he always went. He didn't really have friends, so it was difficult to trace his whereabouts. His parents only continued to pray for him and hoping he never got into trouble. 5 years after Ikemefuna was born, Enemuma had another child, a baby girl, whom they named Adaolisa. Things continued to get worse for the village. 5 years after King Ezedo installation, the elders had a meeting with him and aired their concerns. The Onowu spoke up. "Igwe, we are no longer happy in this village. Things have become so bad for us. We no longer make good sales. Harvest season this year was the poorest ever in the history of Achi village. We don't know what is going on. Villagers are beginning to complain. Something needs to be done, Igwe," he concluded. King Ezedo was quiet for some time before he spoke up. "My elders, I greet you. I have had a whole lot of events before now. Honestly, I have not been a happy king since I ascended the throne," he said, sounding sad. "Why should all of this be happening during my reign? What am I not doing right?" he asked. He then called on one of the guards to go invite the village chief priest, Eziomo. "It's time to ask the gods for an answer," he said. They all waited patiently for the chief priest's arrival. Some minutes later, the guards returned with the chief priest following him. The king told him to consult the gods to find out what was going on in the village and what rituals was needed for things to be okay. The chief prince made some consolations, after which he looked up to the king and the chiefs. "The gods are silent," he announced to them, packed his things and left the palace without waiting for any response from the king and his chiefs. The chiefs left one after the other, leaving the king, who was lost in thought. Things didn't get any better. Every year, the king and the chief would invite the chief priest to make consultations, and his answer remained, "The gods are silent." 10 years into King Ezedo's reign, strange things began to happen. First, a pregnant woman was mysteriously killed by a coconut that dropped from the coconut tree in her compound. Next, a strange wild wind blew and took away 2 children that were playing. A strange sickness hit the villagers and made them cough uncontrollably. The king could no longer bear to see his people suffer like that. He sent his guards to invite the elders and the chief priest for an urgent meeting. Shortly after that, they were all gathered in the palace. "I am not happy at all," the king began. "We need to do something very fast. The gods can't be silent. They can't watch us suffer like this," he continued. Turning to the chief priest, he said, "Do you want me to invite another chief priest for consultation? Let me know if this is too big for you to handle," he said in anger. "Let me consult the gods again," the chief priest replied, and began another consultation. Few minutes after, he smiled. "Finally, the gods have spoken," he said. "There is an evil child in this land. The gods are angry with his presence in the land. We must send him to the evil forest for peace to return to this land," he informed them. "Which child?" the chiefs asked, one after the other. "Ikemefuna, the son of Amadi, the great hunter," the chief priest said, and began to pack his things. He got up to leave. "Do it, and do it very fast, before the village is consumed," he said, and left immediately. The king became confused. He loved Amadi so much because of his kindness. Amadi was a lover of peace and well respected in the village. He sent his guards to invite Amadi to the palace immediately. Luckily for him, Amadi didn't go hunting that day, so a few minutes later, the guard returned to the palace with Amadi. After exchanging pleasantries, the king informed him about the chief priest's revelation. "That is impossible," Amadi resorted. "My son is just an innocent 10-year-old. How can he be responsible for what has befallen Archie?" he asked with so much rage. The chief looked on, unable to say a word. They were also not happy with the chief priest's revelation because they all loved Amadi and his family. "I invited you here to inform you first because of the love and respect I have for you. But I am sorry, Amadi. I have to do this," the king told him. "If that is the decree of the gods, you know I can't say no, especially because it is for the good of the whole village. Please forgive me," the king pleaded. Then he got up from his throne, held his staff, and pronounced, "I hereby banish Ikemefuna, son of Amadi, the great hunter, from Archie village. He is to be chased into the evil forest." Amadi ran out of the palace as fast as his legs could carry him and went to his house to see his son one last time. What do you think will become of Ikemefuna? Please let me know what you think in the comment section. Bye.